notice that all of these Hamas encampments on universities all kind of look the same? Talking the same tents, same signage. I was at one of these protests recently and they didn't even remember the words to their little rhyme.
Okay, folks, so of course these protests are here just in time for election season, right on schedule. And that's one thing I will say. The Revolutionary Party USA is best at. Yeah, believe me, this is a radical group who has shown up since the time of the Ferguson protests to agitate. They are not students. They are not students of Columbia University, nor any of these universities. They're losers. And they are here to agitate and divide because that's how commies, Marxists win. If you read some Marxist theory and you'll find out a little bit about how this works. Anyway, I will leave sources in this video too. Now, I did a video on this before with some sources because people are still saying, you know, who's behind this, what non-government organizations like nonprofits, who's behind this, these organizations, because as we've seen in the past too, many of the tents look a lot alike. They were setting up the tents to prepare for groups like Antifa and BLM to show up. And there's all these groups, okay? And then there's another one that's funded by George Soros, and it's something like Students for Palestine, another one that has Palestine in the name. Again, I will leave the links. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of that because that's the research part, and that's pretty boring. But you can look at the archives yourself and see. And the New York Post was the one who kind of reported that George Soros, a lot of this money for these protests, these communist protests, because the pro-Palestine thing, it's an excuse for who to get in there. Who are the agitators? There's probably two going on right now. There's probably two agitators. There's one that's money coming from Hamas directly for agitators to go, Islamic radicals to go onto campuses and get these stupid kids, these dupes, agitated and get them to burn stuff down and break stuff. And they themselves will do it themselves to, like follow my lead. Watch me break a window. Okay, dumb students, come along with me and break windows too and spray paint this. And this is what Antifa and, okay, so that's that side. The other side is the George Soros funding. So you've got Hamas funding part of this, then you've got George Soros and his groupies funding the other part. Okay, and that has everything to do with just deconstructing society, period, for the sake of communism. George Soros, he's Jewish, but he could care less about Jews. I'm serious. This guy, he is self-loathing. His history demonstrates that, especially when he was a kid, what he did for the Nazis. Yeah, he doesn't care about Jews. So anti-Semitic, he doesn't care. He just wants the ultimate destruction of Western society and ushers in like a communist totalitarian society too. He hates humanity, literally. And so you've got two sources of funding coming, one coming from Hamas, one coming from George Soros. And so anyway, I digress a little bit. So Charlie Kirk says, two confirmations in this clip, the clip that I just showed. The criminals who seized Hamilton Hall at Columbia were outside agitators, not students. Okay, so most likely Antifa. Approximately 300 were arrested at Columbia University overnight, the majority of whom are not students. People do not yet realize just how much money and resources the left-wing activist networks have. Now, as far as community organizing, it is true. The left wing is superb at that. They have got that down to a science. And that's about the only skill that they have, but it's formidable in certain ways. I mean, we can push back, but it can be, but we've seen enough people saw the riots, George Floyd riots and the Antifa stuff during 2020 that we know better now. It's difficult, but we know the timing. It's an election year, so they are told. And I have a feeling too that I'll be honest, the Biden regime is behind this too. This is why you're not seeing the FBI go in there and arrest these people. I'm not seeing any of that happen. I'm just seeing kind of lame duck attempts to shut it down. Now, make no mistake. The right is being criticized a little bit because they're like, Well, what if it's free speech? Like there's people on the right saying, oh, just shut it down, shut these stupid students down. I'm saying, no, they can protest, but there are certain rules. Like you should protest. If you feel strongly about something, go ahead and do it. You actually have that right. You have that right, but you have to obey the law, and you have to do it within the bounds of the law. Like the university has its own set of laws, they have a rule of law there, and then the city has its own laws as well. Well, the problem is yes, I support that, but I will push back against this argument saying, oh, the right says to shut it down. Yeah, there are some. I'm saying shut down the violence and the vandalism, which is what they're doing. And pretty soon you're going to see the same things as 2020, where they're going to do this every night. They're going to try to set fire to things, and they are going to they're going to destroy property, of course, just like they did in 2020. So they have a ton of money right now, but mainly it's coming from subsidiary NGOs because they launder. I call it kind of NGO laundering. They launder this money through several NGO subsidiaries. It comes from George Soros, and I'll focus on George Soros more. It comes from George Soros through Open Society, his Open Society Foundation, but then it is washed through several NGO subsidiaries like Students for Palestine, things that Soros does donate to, but it's kind of washed through there, so it's hard to track exactly where the source is. Like it's trying to find the main drug dealer. Like there's all these small-time drug dealers out there on the streets, but who's the main one? Like the FBI used to do that. They used to go after like, yeah, we don't want the small-time drug dealers. We want the big ones. So how do we find them? Through these little small drug dealers. It's kind of the same thing. And the cabal is set up that way. It's a mafia, essentially a mafia of NGOs. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. So number two, sorry about that. Approximately 300 were arrested. People do not yet realize they're behind BLM. They are behind the Antifa brigades. They are behind the pro-Hamas encampments. And like I said, the Revolutionary Party, Revolutionary Communist Party USA, that's an actual group. Go to influencewatch.com and you can find out information on them. They're radical. They show up to instigate and agitate every single one of these protests. They've been doing it, at least I know, since Ferguson, Missouri, but they've been around a long time. And so they are here to agitate, and they're not students, okay? So these people will be flown there. They'll be bussed there. They'll be unloaded on campus. And as you can see here, the majority of these 300 people weren't even students, okay? They're just there to cause division and problems. And so anyway, let's go to some of the commentary. George Soros is an anti-Semitic international terrorist. Yes, people, and he uses that shield often. George Soros will say, if anybody criticizes him, he'll say, well, that's anti-Semitic. And I'm like, no, they're criticizing your ideas. That has nothing to do with Jewish or non-Jewish. That has to do with a bad idea is a bad idea, dude. Like you say something stupid, I'm going to call you out for being stupid. You can say anti-Semitic all you want, but I'm still going to be like, yeah, okay, that aside, it's still a stupid idea. So he says that often, but he doesn't care. And so Zapula is right here. He says, George Soros is an anti-Semitic international terrorist who's responsible for all of these invasive attacks on American colleges and universities. Soros has already been exposed as having funded many of these occupations. They'll keep happening unless money is stopped. Well, it won't, because he also has funded most of the Democrats. And most of these DAs that have been involved in defunding the police and allowing these cities to fall into shit, there are Soros-funded DAs. And Biden himself gets donor funding from Soros. So why would he stop this stuff? Okay, this is part of the Democrat plan right here. George Soros is very much the unelected representative of the Democrats in America, which is essentially just the Communist Party. We know who they are now. Okay, Sassafras says, they made a comeback just in time for the election. Yep, bingo. Do everything they can to cause chaos and destruction. Only this time they are now importing illegals to not only vote, but also create a terrorism state in America. Those illegals crossing aren't refugees. And yes, that's true. They aren't. These are criminals let out of jails, and they're also from terrorist cells in other countries. Antifa repurposed for the 2024 election. We all knew it was coming, and here we are. The terrorists that took over Hamilton Hall look like Antifa. Yeah, I had this penciled in on my calendar already. I was like, just wait. It's an election year. Springtime comes around. All the Antifa goons and stuff who can't handle the cold weather, they'll come out when the weather gets better and when the funding comes from George Soros. As I said, too, a lot of these tents, there's so much to say about this, so I get a little distracted, but all these tents, there's a lot of green tents with like kind of a tan top, rain top. I've seen a lot of those, and I'm like, seems like these are bought in bulk by somebody else. It seems organized, like not, it does, this is not students doing this, is organized. Somebody is behind this paying all this money. So yes, it is heavily influenced by left-wing investors and their money and left-wing activists. Same players as the Summer of Love. Yeah. So here it is, folks. I think this is really sums up who Antifa is. Hate is the essence of their philosophy. And if you don't believe that, please read about the other underground terrorists. One of them, I think Mark Rudd or something, he was like, no, it's good to hate. Hate is good. Hate is what we need. He said these like this, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he literally said like, he used that word. Like hate is what's going to help us if we learn to hate and stuff. And I'm like, man, what the heck? Anyway, so they just rebranded themselves and the Democrats are following in their same old MO footsteps here. The Democrats then burned down historic churches, now burn down historic churches, which is what they do. Wore masks to hide their shame. There's the KKK. Wear masks to hide their shame. Destroyed black-owned businesses. Yep, back in the time of the KKK. Nowadays, destroyed black-owned businesses. Remember, Antifa and BLM, they destroyed mostly black neighborhoods. Poor black neighborhoods is what they went to destroy. Okay, so don't think in any way that these left-wingers like black people or that they care. They're using them because the Communist Party has been using blacks in America since about 1925. If you want to know more about this, please read about Langston Hughes and some of the 12 blacks that were given tickets to go to Moscow in 1925 to become pinpointed as communist agitators. Please read about that. This isn't conspiracy, it's for real. So, somebody says this was not a student protest. Well, no. So if you see somebody in a mask and covering their ugliness, and then they're wearing like PJs and they have like a bat or a knife or an axe, yeah, this is an Antifa member right here. This is irregular warfare being waged by the elites against American citizens. That's one of the most lucid statements I have seen today. This is irregular warfare being waged by elites. I promise you right now, Antifa, BLM, pro-Palestinian protesters right now, these are the paramilitary groups used by the elites, just like the brown shirts and the red guards. They are being used to attack America, to undermine any rule of law, and to destroy everything they can. That's all they're good at. And then they'll be used up. Once they've gotten what they've wanted, the elites have gotten what they've wanted, they will go after their own people. These dupes right here, they will jail them and probably execute them. I'm just saying, this based on historical incidents that have happened with like 1939, with also the purges with Stalin, the same things happened and the same dupes were used. Okay, and with Mao's Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, right? The mass starvation of 40 million people. Soros money. Soros needs to be deported. Well, yeah. BLM 2.0. So here it is. I think this is pretty relevant. Here's where they coincide. The BLM, Antifa, pro-Hamas, the DNC at the center. Now remember, behind all this is, again, I will make this a point. We cannot forget, the Revolutionary Communist Party, USA, is behind quite a bit of this stuff right here. We don't hear their name very often, but they are behind much of this as well. So hopefully you see that come up more so people will realize that these elements are at play here. So why did a representative that looked like a student come out and ask for the university to provide food for them and said the university didn't want students dying from dehydration? Yeah, some girl said that. I'm like, oh, give me a break, or something like that. And sorry, Kirk, just going by this platform, the majority on here are on the left. Okay, whatever. A Republican protest. Yep, just Donald Trump pointing and just like saying some stuff and people cheering. A Democratic peaceful protest. Fires in the background, fire bombings, death, injuries, and destruction. Yep, that's the DNC right there. This is where the money comes from, which it does. And I will leave archive links at the bottom that will show the details on this. Funded by Soros, Occupy Wall Street, both Ferguson riots, Baltimore riots, Trayvon Martin riots, Million Mask March. Over 33 million last year alone. On Soros's payroll, Black Lives Matter, Hands Up, Don't Shoot, Anonymous, Al Sharpton, Nation of Islam, Bloods and Crips, the Black Panther Party. Let's see. Just more proof that Democrats gave up on black people and moved on to foreign people, which is exactly what they did. That's why the first people to be basically destroyed by the Democrats, first and last, will be black people, I promise. Black neighborhoods, black communities. They were first to be in there, to get in there and destroy those communities. And now they're leaving them behind because they never cared anyway. And that's why they're moving all the illegal immigrants into their communities right now and to their schools. Yeah. So Hamas University, the ISIS of the East, indoctrination camp. Oh, that's funny. So anyway, you get the point. But yeah, that's more on where this stuff is coming from. And here's something interesting. The Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, was an unindicted co-conspiracy in the Holy Land Foundation trial, which involved NGOs that raise money in the U.S. to provide support for known Islamic organizations. Yes. And somebody says, I've been saying this isn't an organic student movement at all. It might have started as a simple protest, but that's long gone. It's being pushed and funded largely by outside groups and organizations. So people have woken up and they're seeing what it is. People are much more aware. Thanks to a couple of things, platforms like Twitter opening up a little more to freedom of speech. It ain't perfect, but it's helped. So anyway, let me know what you think, folks. Again, I will leave the sources below, but thanks for watching. Please put a like on the video if you like it, and I will talk to you later. Bye.